All right, good afternoon and welcome to our webinar, Debunking Retirement Myths. My name is Katie Bruno and I'm a financial advisor at Morey & Quinn Wealth Partners. And today I'm joined by my partner, Michael Morey, who is also a financial advisor at Morey & Quinn Wealth Partners. And we are located here in Omaha, Nebraska. We do want to open it up for questions. So during the webinar, if you have any questions, please type them into the Q&A box and we will answer them as we go or at the end, depending on how it fits into the presentation. So in today's webinar, we're going to be talking about retirement. And we're going to start by going over some common retirement myths or misconceptions that people have when it comes to planning for their retirement. And then we're going to talk about defining what your retirement should look like. What's your vision? How should we establish your priorities? And then how do we complete the puzzle? What income do you have coming in to meet your goals? And how do we make that income work into the overall plan? So one of the most common myths, and you're going to see this in a couple of the different myths that we have in the presentation today, is talking about what your expenses are going to be in retirement, what kind of income you need to support your expenses in retirement. And people automatically assume that your expenses are going to be lower in retirement. But that's not necessarily true, because for some people, when they stop working a full-time job, they pick up other hobbies that may cost more money, or they start traveling and want to take a trip here or there. And the reality is that their expenses are actually going up. So I wrote down here a couple of questions. Consider what expenses are being eliminated from your budget. So is it a healthcare cost that you are currently paying that's now going away? Is it gas, because you have an hour commute to and from work every day? So what expenses are going away, and then what expenses are being added? Is that a travel expense? Is that a hobby expense? Is it that you're going to watch your grandkids a couple days a week in retirement and you're going to be supporting them? So we really have to look at what you're actually going to be doing during the day when you're in retirement to know if your expenses are going to be lower or higher. Also, you want to be mindful of any outstanding debt that you have going into retirement. So usually like to say, don't go into retirement with any consumer debt, credit cards, personal loans, car loans. But we want to make sure that whatever debt you do have, it's built into your monthly expenses or into your budget. Some people go into retirement with a mortgage, and there's nothing wrong with that. The key here is that it fits into your overall plan. If you have a mortgage of $1,100 a month, we need to make sure that your income in retirement can support that $1,100 a month mortgage. And so the last thing here is, do you have a spending plan or a budget? And it's really important that prior to retirement, you track what your normal expenses are. I know a lot of us just have our bills on auto pay and we don't think about what's going in and out on a monthly basis. But when you get close to retirement, it's really important that you have nailed down what those expenses are, because a couple $100 more or a couple $100 less can have a significant impact on your investments over a period of time. And I'm going to pass it off to Mike, and he is going to talk about myth number 2.
So for myth number 2, it's you need 70% of your pre-retirement income to be comfortable in retirement. And that 70% number has been tossed around for a long time, as long as I can remember. And the reality is there's really not a number across the board for everybody. Everybody's different. Everybody's situation is different. The key here is we've really got to get an estimate on the amount of money that you're going to need in retirement. And that can be a very complex and unique thing to do. And as Katie just got done talking about, doing that is called creating a budget. And creating a budget is typically one of the hardest things for people to do. And that's because many people either don't know what they're currently spending, or they're simply afraid to know what they're spending. But creating a budget and understanding what you're spending is one of the most crucial steps to planning for a successful retirement, and one of the first things that you should do. Secondly is, do you want to maintain your current standard of living? And ideally, we want people to at least maintain their current standard of living. We don't want them to have to pinch pennies in order to make ends meet during retirement. Or maybe some people want to live lavishly. They've built up all this money and they want to spend it while they can. Those are all decisions that we have to find answers to, so we can plan for retirement. There really is no cookie cutter approach to retirement spending. Some people want to downsize when the kids are out of the house and have an empty nest. They don't need all that space, while others plan on buying a second home, or traveling more, or maybe traveling to see places they weren't able to see while they were busy working. But determining what you want retirement to look like will go a long way to determining the amount of money you're going to need every year. Because everybody's different. Everybody has different goals during retirement, and all that is a different budget. And so once you've created a budget and you know what amount of money you're going to need to create this retirement plan of yours, we've got to determine where the sources of reliable income are going to come from to fund that. Once you've determined the budget, okay, so maybe we need $5,000 a month. Where's that money going to come from? And these can be things like Social Security. Maybe you've got a military pension, or maybe you've got a pension from a former job that you have, or maybe some people they need to stay busy during retirement, so they retire, but they actually find a part-time job, but it's something that they really enjoy doing. It's not necessarily a job. It's a hobby, if you will. So that could be another source of income. And so, speaking of Social Security, Katie is going to talk about myths surrounding Social Security.
Yes. So as Mike said, Social Security is one source of retirement income. A lot of people know that Social Security is a reliable income source that they have, but they aren't sure when to start taking it and how to maximize the amount of benefits they get from Social Security. So during your working years, as you're working, part of your paycheck is taken to pay into Social Security. And then Social Security was designed to provide retirees with some income to live on. And the basic general assumption is that 40% of your pre-retirement income will come back to you in benefits of Social Security. So it's not nearly as much as you would make working. The way that Social Security is calculated, the amount is calculated, it's a formula, and you can go out to socialsecurity.gov or ssa.gov and you can calculate your benefit. But the way that they calculate it is they take your 10 highest years of income. So the amount you make is based on your 10 highest years of working income, and they call that 40 credits. So 10 years is 40 credits. Now, let's say you start off your career and you're in your high income earning years, and as you ease into retirement, you're maybe working part-time, but you're still paying into Social Security and not collecting. It's not the 10 last years, it's the 10 highest years. So they would go off of those early years when you were in your high income working years. So a lot of people tend to think that they should start taking Social Security as soon as they're eligible so that they can get the most money from Social Security. But there's a lot of factors that play into Social Security. And so the first one is your age. You can start taking Social Security at 62 years old, but if it is not your full retirement age, and your full retirement age is decided by the year you were born, for most people today, it's going to be about 67 years old. For every year before your full retirement age, they are going to reduce your benefits. So if you were gonna receive $2,500 a month at 67 and you decided to take it at 62, now you're maybe only going to receive $2,000 a month. And that is a permanent reduction in benefits. So it doesn't bump back up when you hit full retirement age. If you start taking it early, it is a permanent reduction in benefits. Now, for every year you delay taking Social Security past your full retirement up to age 70, your benefits are going to be increased through what they call delayed retirement credits. And this is an increase of about 8% of your benefit per year. So I always tell people to look at what they're doing. If you're still working and you're making a decent income that supports your lifestyle, taking Social Security as soon as you're eligible may not be what's best for you, because you're going to take a permanent reduction in benefits, and then also because of taxes. If you are working while you take Social Security, and there's a lot of nuances here, so everyone's situation is going to be different, but generally speaking, your Social Security income is going to then be taxed. And it may not be taxed. It depends on your income if your Social Security is going to be taxed, and it depends on all of your income. So your Social Security, your pension, part-time employment, and income from other sources. So all of these things have to work together to determine what the best strategy is for your situation. And then I also put on here your marriage. So you may be eligible for spousal benefits. Based on your marriage, your spousal benefits may be more than benefits on your own record. So that's something to consider, and how spousal benefits play out if you start taking your Social Security earlier. Now, we have a tool that is a Social Security maximization tool where we can put in what your benefit would be at full retirement age based on what the Social Security Administration gives you. And then we calculate a life expectancy, because we have to have a stop date. If we knew what year or how long you were going to live, if we knew you were going to live to 95 years old and you were going to retire at 70, I can tell you what strategy would make the most sense to get the maximum amount of money back from Social Security. Unfortunately, we never know, when the end of our life is coming. So those things can be hard to calculate, but at least then you can go into your retirement making a Social Security decision that is based on planning and actual numbers. And so that's what I'm going to say about Social Security, and we're happy to take anyone who's interested through our Social Security maximization tool and show you all of the different options that would be eligible for your retirement. And Mike is going to talk about the 4% rule.
So myth number 4, the 4% rule. When it comes to how much to save for retirement, individuals of all ages, everybody, doesn't matter how old you are, they pluck this arbitrary number out of the air and they call it a retirement savings goal. And often retirees think if they withdraw only 4% per year from the retirement savings, that they'll have enough to last a lifetime. But there's really no right number for either. Everybody's different. And while the 4% rule might be a general rule of thumb, there's some important factors to consider that could impact the 4% rule, such as, what do you think taxes are going to look like during your retirement? Do you think they'll be higher than they are now, or do you think they will be lower than they are now? And me personally, I'm fairly confident in saying that I think 10, 15, 20 years from now, taxes are going to be higher than they are now. And what will that do to your retirement plan and the amount you're able to withdraw from your retirement savings? Is your investment strategy built to outpace inflation? Inflation is the loss of purchasing power. When you go to the gas station and you see the price of gas going up, or the cost of a stamp increasing, or postage stamp increasing, or a gallon of milk, that is all inflation. And some inflation is good. It's a sign of a healthy, growing economy. But we've also had times of hyperinflation, and we can even have times of deflation during recessions. But historically, the rate of inflation has been right around 3%, okay? And if you know the rule of 72, that means that the cost of living is going to double in about every 20 to 23 years. And so if you retire early enough and you live a long, healthy life, that means that what it costs for you to live, let's say it costs you $60,000 a year to live. Well, 20 years from now, it's going to double. It'll cost you $120,000 to live. So will you be able to withdraw only 4% over time in order to keep up with the cost of living or inflation? Another question to ask is, could a major life event like purchasing a home or using a lump sum to pay off the mortgage, is that going to impact the amount you can comfortably withdraw? Because once you take that money out of your investment savings, that's gone. Now, putting it into a house or paying off the mortgage, that's another form of an investment. But you can't take that money then and go buy the groceries or pay utility bills. So that's all something to consider. Or maybe if there's a major life event, a medical emergency, or you help out a family and you have to take out a large sum of money from your investment assets to help. Well, that's going to reduce the amount that you're able to comfortably withdraw to fund your retirement goals. And the last one I have there is, what about market volatility or poor performance of investments? Would that impact the value of your portfolio and thus affect the amount you can withdraw? And there's very few things that Katie and I can guarantee in our business. But one of the things we can guarantee you is that there's going to be days and months and even years when the stock market doesn't do so well and your portfolio loses money. And if you're old enough, you'll remember the Great Recession of 2007 to 2009. And if you're 64 and getting ready to retire within the next year or two, and we go through another 2008 where the market's down 35%, your portfolio is down 35%, is that going to affect the 4% rule? So it's really important that you meet with an advisor and plan out a long-term a goal so you know what you need and what you can afford to withdraw. And figuring out a retirement plan and a withdrawal strategy should be as unique as you are, taking into account your current finances, your future income, your goals, your dreams, along with a lot of other considerations. And what's more, your plan and withdrawal rate may change as your circumstances change. And as we all know, life happens. It's unpredictable. But that's where your advisor can help you calculate and recalculate as you meet to do reviews. And you're going to meet to figure out what retirement savings goals are right for you and your retirement savings withdrawal strategy.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that, just because I just finished a conversation with a client who a year ago we created her financial plan, and she wanted to withdraw $20,000 for a down payment on a house in 2025. Well, because there's been a lot of change in the housing market over the last year, she came back today and said, well, I think I'm going to need more like 50,000. And so when we plug that into the plan, that put her withdrawal rate in that year at over 25%. And so the 4% rule, in the 1 year of her retirement, she was withdrawing, more than 25% of her assets. And so that's the benefit to working with a financial advisor, is that you can see these things in these solid numbers or rules. They really aren't a one size fits all situation. Everyone's situation needs to be around their goals and what they're looking for. And so the fifth myth here is healthcare costs are covered by Medicare. And this is not true. Medicare does not cover all of your medical bills. Medicare is going to pay for routine visits and hospitalization. Dental care, vision, hearing services, those are also not going to be covered. And so to have those things covered, you're going to have to buy what's called a Medicare supplement that will help you fill in those gaps. Now, I want to just take a minute and talk about when you turn 65 and if you're still working. So when you turn 65, you are eligible for Medicare. Even if you continue to work and are covered by employer coverage, you still need to go sign up for Medicare and at least pay for your Part A premiums. Now, Part B is different. Part B would be stuff that would be covered by your health insurance policy offered by your employer. So you don't actually have to sign up for that until you are done working and wanting to actually use Medicare as your primary insurance. Now, Medicare supplements is different from Part A and Part B. Medicare supplements are going to help pay for deductibles, prescriptions, copays, premiums. And there are different plans out there right now, some that have lower premiums that are ideal for people who are much healthier. They have lower premiums, but then when you go to the doctor, you're responsible for more of your bill. And then there are plans out there that are higher premiums, but when you go to the doctor, you basically don't have to pay for much. So I always recommend that you meet with somebody who specializes in Medicare supplements and you give them the information, what prescriptions you on, what's your health like, so that they can help you make the best decision on what Medicare supplement is best for you. Now, I also want to say that when you buy a Medicare supplement, it is an insurance product, so you do go through underwriting. And so what kind of plan you choose does matter long term, because when your health changes, you may not be able to switch the type of plan that you were once on. And then lastly, Medicare does not cover long-term care. So long-term care is going in to a facility or having someone come into your home to help you because you cannot take care of yourself, or if you have dementia, Alzheimer's disease. So people that need help paying for long-term care have to spend down their money before they're eligible to get any assistance for long-term care. And I think this is really important to bring up because long-term care is expensive. And more people are going to need long-term care. We're living longer lives, and we have access to cutting-edge medicine and technology that can help us with health problems that we may experience. And with all of that being said, the likelihood of us needing some type of care is increasing. So long-term care insurance is separate from Medicare insurance. I normally recommend that people start looking at long-term care insurance. It's not for everyone. Everyone's situation is unique, but at least looking at long-term care insurance around the age of 60. Like Medicare supplements, it is an insurance product and does require underwriting, which will look at pre-existing conditions, your health, and that type of thing. And long-term care insurance, the purpose of it is to protect your assets so that you do not have to spend down your retirement savings to pay for long-term care services, and then also to relieve the responsibility from having to have friends or family care for you when you can't care for yourself. You have the money in the insurance policy to pay for licensed care professionals who are trained to give you this type of care, which gives you a higher quality of care. And Mike is going to take us back to talking about investments with myth number 6.
Myth number 6, the percentage of stock in your portfolio should be 1 minus your age. And this myth has also been around forever, and it's one that really frustrates me. So what this means, 1 minus your age. So let's say you're 80 years old. Well, 1 minus 80, or call it 2, right? 100 minus 80 is 2, or 20%, meaning you should have 20% of stock in your portfolio. But there's, a lot of holes in that theory, and I'll explain why here in a second. But really, it's important to work with an advisor and develop a long-term strategy that will achieve what you need. Everything is driven by what you need. Okay, we can't develop an investment portfolio for you if we don't know what your needs are. And we also need to know what kind of risk that you're comfortable taking on, because I could tell you what you need and what kind of investments will help get you there. But if you're not comfortable taking on that amount of risk, then we need to go back to the drawing board. And it's important to note also that, asset allocation in your portfolio is never ever set in stone. It's always changing, always evolving. It changes with when your time horizons change, when your goals change, and when market and economic conditions change. For example, what about current interest rates? As you know, interest rates currently are very, very low, historically low. And during periods of low interest rates, being overly conservative and overweight in bonds and fixed income may not generate the income needed to support your spending during retirement. On the other hand, perhaps dividend-paying stocks can generate more income than bonds during low interest rate periods. For example, if we developed a plan and we knew you needed a 5% draw on your investments or a 5% yield. Well, right now with interest rates where they currently are, it's really, really tough to go out and find a good corporate bond that's paying you 5% interest. They're not out there right now. So maybe the alternative is to look for quality dividend paying stocks that are paying a dividend or a yield closer to that 5%. Again, it's all driven by what you need. There's no cookie cutter approach of what percentage of stock you need to have in your portfolio. But it's also important to remember that with stocks comes more risk, but also with more risk, historically, over the long term comes more reward. And while past performance does not guarantee future returns, maybe if you are a long-term investor and are okay taking on a little more risk, well, historically, stocks have outperformed bonds over the long term. And so it's important to figure out what your time horizon is, how much time you have before you'll need this money, and what you need and what your risk tolerance is, and then sit down with an advisor and develop an investment strategy. So there's no cookie cutter approach of what percentage of bonds you should have in your portfolio or stocks. And it's always evolving. And as Katie mentioned in the previous myth, with long-term care, people are living longer and longer with medical advances and medicine, and we're living longer. And one question to ask is your portfolio designed in a way to make sure that you do not outlive your money? And as I said before, stocks historically have outperformed bonds. So if you adhere to this myth that the amount of stocks that should be in your portfolio is 1 minus your age, well, if you have that conservative of portfolio, but you're really, really healthy and live to be 100 years old, is that lower return going to be able to keep up with your lifespan? So maybe, investing a portion of your money in stocks to get a higher return to make sure you don't outlive your money is a good idea. But that's why it's important to sit down with an advisor, talk all these things out, figure out what your risk tolerance is and what your needs are, and develop an investment strategy and portfolio that suits your needs.
Right. And our last myth that we're going to talk about is on taxes. And the myth is that your taxes are going to be lower in retirement. And with this myth, this automatically is assuming that you're going to have less income in retirement. And we work with several teachers, and I like working with teachers, and this myth comes into play a lot with teachers because teachers have pensions, and then they also get to collect Social Security. So a lot of times we'll be sitting down with a teacher and we'll show them that they're actually making more money in retirement than they were as a teacher, because their pension and their Social Security combined is more than what they're receiving as a wage as a teacher. So we have to look at what your income is to determine what your tax bracket is. And we all know that the tax law is always going to be talked about changing, and there's always going to be some legislation around higher taxes or lower taxes. And so we have to be flexible when we are creating a retirement plan and talking about taxes. In 2017, we had the Tax Cut and Job Act, and we did away with several of the deductions that were available to people to reduce their taxable income. And we went to a higher standard deduction, and we saw more and more people taking the standard deduction versus itemizing. And so this third bullet point here about qualifying for tax breaks, such as mortgage and college savings deductions, will these things even matter in retirement? Maybe they make sense to you now while you're working, but in retirement, you're better off taking the standard deduction. So there's a lot of planning that needs to go into this that you can do with your financial advisor and a tax professional like your CPA to determine, okay, what tax bracket am I going to be in retirement? Is it lower? Is it higher? And then looking at your different income sources to know what's taxable and not taxable. Some pension plans and other retirement plans have provisions in them that lower your Social Security amount you would receive, like a government offset, or some of them make your Social Security taxable. So we have to look at all of those things, and then look at what income you're going to be receiving from your retirement accounts or your investment accounts. Now, if you have an IRA or a 401k or a 403b, those are investment retirement assets that you have not paid tax on yet. So when you take money out of those in retirement, you are going to be taxed on them at your tax bracket rate. Now, Roth IRAs, you're not going to pay tax on them. They're not going to count as taxable income. Now, if you just have standard traditional investment accounts, those are taxed a completely different way depending on whether your investment gains or losses have been held for a long time or a short time. So there's lots of moving parts that come into how your tax bracket is calculated. And that's why it's important to not just make an assumption that your taxes are going to be lower in retirement. It needs to come down to planning and putting it all down on paper and saying, okay, where do we come out? Which leads to the next slide here, and it's talking about your retirement vision. So we have some planning software that we call goal planning and monitoring. And within our software, we help our clients build retirement plans. And where we start in the retirement plan is talking about what a client wants their retirement to be like. And we ask, have you really spent time thinking about what you want retirement to be like? Sometimes we're so bogged down in the day-to-day of our work that we just think, well, I don't want to work anymore. But okay, you're not going to work anymore. What are you going to do? Is it traveling? Is it working part-time? Is it volunteering? Is it spending time with the grandkids? All of these things are items that we would put into the financial plan, and we would categorize them by your goals. We would categorize your goals by your needs, wants, and wishes. So your needs are those things that you have to have. Those are that's a roof over your head, food in your stomach, insurance. Where your wants are things that you'd like to do, retirement, maybe a big home improvement project. And then your wishes are things that you've maybe thought of, but you have never thought that they could be reality. And we can see if they will be. So when you're thinking about your retirement plan, and when it comes to designing your retirement plan, we have to think about what is your goal and what is your vision for retirement, and how long do we need your money to last. So when we build a retirement plan, we have to have an end date. as Mike said earlier, we don't want you to outlive your money, meaning we don't want you to call us and have to tell you that you just spent your last dollar and we don't have any more money to send you. So in order to keep us from going there, we help create plans. And that really starts with, after creating your vision, it starts with establishing what your priorities are. And Mike's going to talk about that.
Yeah, and to piggyback off that previous slide, when you're planning for your retirement, you need to establish your priorities. Things like, do you want to retire as soon as possible, but potentially with a lower projected income because you haven't had extra years then to save for retirement? Are you okay working for a couple of extra years in order to save more money, which then means you'll have more money to spend? Your income level could potentially be higher during your retirement. Those are questions to ask. What are your priorities? And we tell clients when building their retirement plans, or they're wanting to retire, but maybe they haven't done such a good job of saving for retirement over the years, and so it's not looking so good, and they really have some decisions to make there. You can either keep working, work longer, or spend less, or unfortunately die sooner, and those are the harsh realities. So we need to sit down and plan out what your priorities are and what you want your retirement to look like. Some other questions are, is your vision of retirement, purchasing a second home? Maybe you have, some close family that lives out of town that you want to purchase a home or an apartment to live closer to. Or, maybe perhaps your family has a history of medical issues, and maybe, you see the writing on the wall potentially, and you want to reserve your retirement funds for the potential of some unexpected medical expenses. And these are all trade-offs that we have to think about. And lastly, ask yourself, would you rather, do you want to spend as much money as you can during retirement? You've worked hard all these years to build up this big nest egg, and you want to enjoy it while you can. And you want to spend every last penny, or perhaps maybe it's important for you to leave behind an inheritance to your loved ones, your kids or your relatives, or maybe you've got charitable organizations that you're passionate about, that you want to leave money to. So these are all questions that, working with a financial advisor, sitting down, going through a process like the goal planning and monitoring can really help you determine, what your priorities are, what your goals are, what your time horizon is, what your risk tolerance is. It's all things that you need to think about, plan out, ask questions, really map it out on paper and see what it looks like and what you're going to need. And that's where a good advisor comes in handy in really helping you plan that out and developing a portfolio and a process for you.
So we have given you a lot of things to think about today, and we have asked you a lot of questions and given you a lot of information. So I am going to just ask you to write down these 3 questions and think about them. You don't have to have answers today, but start with these 3 questions and really think about them. What are those basic needs that you need in retirement? That's the housing, the food, the insurance, the healthcare. These are those essential expenses that you have to have. And these should be based on your priorities and what you value. So some people view donating to their church as a necessity, while other people may view that as, if I have extra, I will give to the church. I would absolutely say that needs are a mortgage or a rent payment, it's utilities, it's groceries, it's car maintenance and fuel and health insurance premiums. Those things should absolutely be in your needs, and then consider some of those things that you value. Number 2, what do you want? So these are those expenses that are not essential, but they're ideal. That's based on that vision of retirement, traveling to visit family, or taking an annual trip to another country, or other examples might include dining out or giving gifts or entertainment costs, concerts, movies, things of that nature. Every person has a different idea of what's a need and what's a want, and it doesn't matter. It's your vision, and what you think is a need and a want makes no difference to us. It's just planning for it. And then lastly, what's going to help you get there? And that's where we have to go back and start with your reliable income. And so on this slide, this is a slide that I actually took from the goal planning and monitoring software. And what I have, what you see on the left part of the arrow is your needs. So the needs is the light blue or dark green line with the house. Those are needs. And what we want is to create a plan where your reliable income is going to pay for your needs. So Social Security, pensions, part-time employment, those things cover our basic needs. And then at the other end of the arrow, we have wishes and wants. And we put up there in the top blue arrow that points down retirement assets. So your retirement assets or your investments, those are the things that will support your wants and your wishes. And those things fill the income gap, the middle box, from what we have in reliable income to what our total spending plan should be. If your reliable income isn't enough to cover your needs, then we have to look at your portfolio and look at how your portfolio can be restructured so that we can generate income from your investments to meet those needs. When we go through the financial plan, the next step after identifying that income gap is to create an inventory of all the assets you have that can help fund your retirement and supplement your reliable income. A lot of our clients enjoy going through a goal planning and monitoring, creating their retirement plan through goal planning and monitoring, and it helps them realize a lot of things. One, if the plan doesn't work, how we can change things to make it work. And Mike mentioned that earlier with whether you're going to work longer, spend less, die earlier. Maybe it's taking on more investment risk than you were comfortable with because that's what you need to do to retire when you want to retire, or that's what you need to do to be able to make the portfolio withdrawal that you need. So financial advisors, we're here for you to help navigate retirement. You want to work with a financial advisor who has your best interests and who knows about all the different aspects of building a retirement plan, considering Social Security, considering Medicare supplements, considering building a portfolio that provides income, and how tax planning plays a part of that. So a knowledgeable financial advisor is going to be your partner, and they're going to help you achieve that retirement that you're really striving for. And a financial advisor is going to be well informed about different retirement issues and strategies and tax saving opportunities. As financial advisors, we partner with a lot of other professionals to help you build your team. So we don't claim to be the experts in taxes. We don't claim to be the expert on Medicare supplements, but we know people that can help you and be a part of your team to make your retirement plan comprehensive. And I am going to open it up for any questions.